Hello, this is Richard from Beyond Marathon. I'm going to take you through the White Horse 100 mile, 50 mile, and 50k routes today. So let's jump in and take a look at the courses. I've loaded the Track Trail website, which is the tracking site you're going to be using on this event. And hopefully on here you'll be able to see that there are 3 courses plotted. So let me just remove a couple of those for a second. So the red is showing the 100 mile course. The blue is showing the 50-mile course, and the dark green is showing the 50 kilometers. Now I'm going to leave all of those highlighted because I will go through and share the differences and where the courses split away from each other for the benefit of all those participating in each distance. Anyway, let's first of all start at the start. Seems a sensible place to begin. So we're beginning here in Marlborough. This is Marlborough Youth and Community Centre, which only has a very small car park. And as the guidebook suggests, it's not a good idea to park here. Those spaces will rapidly fill up. There'll be a few volunteer vehicles there anyway. You may be able to find some on-road parking in the vicinity, or also there may be some car parks. Please do check the timings of the car parks. You don't end up with a parking ticket. Once you have parked your vehicle and registered at the venue, we're going to be starting everybody with a mass start. And then, largely speaking, it's more or less a short road section through Marlborough itself up into this point here. If I remember rightly, there's a couple of little railings there which denote this is the point to cross, and then you're going to be going onto trail alongside some houses initially before going onto some fields and then joining a track. Let me zoom out a little bit. And this part of the track is actually drivable, although you're not going to be doing that. And it heads all the way up to this point here. Let me just temporarily remove the 50-kilometer route just to avoid confusing people. So there's actually a little car park at this point in time. You're going to do a quick left and then a right to continue on the route. What you can see here is actually the return route for the 50k, which I'll go into later, but I'll highlight that again now because we will need to see that a little later on. So actually let me just switch it off just for 1 second so you can see the red and blue a bit more clearly. What you're going to see at this point in time is again over a trail section. I'm just going to temporarily put the Ordnance Survey leisure map on and zoom into this because it may make this next section a little clearer for you. So because you join the Ridgeway. So whilst you're on the White Horse Trail, which as you will see as you go around, those little discs with the white horse, from time to time you do join other footpaths, and this is one of those points where White Horse merges with a byway, which is the Ridgeway. So this is open to all traffic. It's potentially, you could see vehicles on there which are not only just bicycles, but there is also potentially 4x4 vehicles wherever you see those kind of straight lines that look like a cross. For those that don't realise, that indicates there's a byway. Okay, so you're going to continue along the Ridgeway for a short period of time until you get to this point in time here where there's a small car park. Now I've actually adjusted the GPX file not to include this little out and back. This is actually the first of the White Horses. However, rather than have you divert down the hill just to run straight their way back up again, the GPX, which you will have downloaded or will download, will actually go straight the way across there. So you won't actually see this horse from the top. But as you continue along the byway here and then turn left where we leave the Ridgeway back onto the White Horse Trail, as you can see itself, as you run along here, if you glance back, you'll get a spectacular view of the White Horse. And this trail then leads you all the way into our first checkpoint at Broad Hinton. And the checkpoint, I'm just going to turn the 50k route on again at this point in time because there's a difference. The checkpoint is here. We usually try and set up outside Broad Hinton Village Hall if the weather is fine. If not, we'll set up inside. And it is at this point where the 50-kilometer route takes a slightly shorter route than the other two. Oh, something I forgot to mention, as you do head into Broadhinton, the official White Horse Trail actually bends that way, but in order to bring you into the checkpoint, we're continuing on the road. So do make sure you don't follow the White Horse Trail there. You continue right the way around the road, it bends round to the right, come to the village hall here, and then as you leave, the 50 kilometers are actually going to retrace their steps and follow this round. Previously, we have used this bit of trail here, but it's a little bit picky, difficult to find. There's often some animals in here which were making it a little uncomfortable for people. So instead, we've opted to use this piece of road. Although this road isn't busy, it can see some traffic, so do take care on this road. You're only on it for probably about 700 or 800 meters, but take care as you go up, and then you'll soon come across this right-hand turn, which will link you up. You're going to go ahead about 200 meters, then turn left, and you'll make your way across to the Broad Town hill figure, which is the next horse, which is at this point in time. Then you'll join up with the rest of the route. So let me now skip back to the 50 and 100 milers, which are going to be following this red route here. So you're going to be continuing along the road until just before the crossroads, where there's a left turn onto the track. Again, you'll see the white disc back onto the White Horse Trail. The White Horse Trail officially goes straight across here. However, depending on what the farmer has planted there this year, and I don't know because I've not visited, we usually suggest you go around the edge of that field. Sometimes this can be the head-high cornfield of doom. Trying to thrash your way through there can be somewhat challenging. If there's no crops or low crops, by all means go straight the way through. If there are, I suggest you go around the edge of that field just to make your own life a little easier. You'll then continue on through and past some little earthworks here, and then descend down to this very, very sharp left-hand corner, just past where the remains of this castle were. You'll do a very sharp left, right back on yourself, and continue along this trail, following it in and out of a few woods and trees, and then ultimately you'll go past the White Horse I've just mentioned, which is a Broad Town. Some people like to take a trip up onto the higher path along here and drop down later. Personally, I would stay on the GPX file and follow it all the way along the main trail, which is the one you will naturally follow right the way through into Broad Town itself, where you will continue to pick up the White Trail. This bit is actually on quiet country lane right the way through into Cliff Pippard and past, I think the pub there is now closed, or it closed a few years ago, unless it's reopened, I don't know about it. And you'll then continue again onto some lanes until this point here. Now at this point in time, you will see a little White Horse sign pointing you off and off the road back onto trail. If you do miss it, it doesn't really lead you anywhere useful. You end up much further on the course. The only way to get back on it is to dip down at this point in time. So don't miss that little turn off there. And then we come to this, which is, I'm going to try and put the satellite view on for this just to illustrate this particular section of the course, which, while I don't think it's difficult to navigate, it is a little bit irritating. So if I go to find it, I've just zoomed in here just so you can see it a little bit more. So this is that little turn off on the road, and then it goes through this. Now this is a motocross track, and unfortunately the landowners, like many such people who have motocross and motor tracks across their land, don't care anything for the footpaths that are on them. So as a result, the footpath essentially peters out. You can take any path you like through there. I really don't mind. Particularly upsets me when the landowners destroy the paths like this. So take any path you choose. As you can actually see, it's actually pretty much a straight line. The GPX is drawn very accurately, so as long as you keep going the same direction, you really cannot go wrong at all. So don't worry about that. Just keep following your nose. Once you get to around here, the path soon picks up and becomes followable again. as normal, and you'll go right the way across this farmland until you pop out on a road where you do a very brief right then left, as a little holly bush, if I remember rightly, and a high stile there, which leads you across these fields. You'll note the GPX has been drawn very accurately because there are some field boundaries where you cross. I think this was a little bridge or a gap in the hedge. I think it's a bridge, if I remember rightly. And we've drawn it to help you ensure that you cross over to the right side of the field, continue on, and so you can see we've tried to draw the GPX as absolutely as close as we can to the route. And you'll soon, after crossing that section, you'll come out on the road here, and you come out at Highway Common. You go past the camping, just at Highway Common, and just before you get to the camping site, there is a sharp left turn, which will lead you on a trail, then up around a steep little trail as you climb up here, and then around the edge of the fields. Let me zoom out. Let me just turn off the 50k just to make the blue and the red a little bit brighter. And you continue on a very wide track between all of these fields. It follows the field boundary, but it's actually a very wide farm track which you follow all the way around. From memory, there isn't much of a track across this section here, but rather than going all the way around there, the path does go straight across. So just shoot straight across that section there and continue to follow it. And ultimately, you will end up on a farm track, which you turn right, and that leads you all the way into the next little village at Churhill. If you've got an old copy of the route, then it may lead you to Churhill Village Hall, where we have in previous years had a checkpoint. We're not having a checkpoint there this year. Instead, the checkpoint is going to be here. There's a little lay-by just the other side of the A4. Cross this road with care. It can be pretty fast and busy. We're going to have a checkpoint. Please, no one's crew must visit this location. There is a space for 1 or 2 cars at the most. If your crews block that, we will not be able to park there, so it causes a real problem. So we'll service the checkpoint from you here, and then you'll have a lovely little climb up. I'm afraid it doesn't quite show it, but trust me, it's a nice little climb up all the way up past the Churhill White Horse, which you can probably just about make out. There it is, and the Churhill Monument, which will be very distinct. It's one of those great big needles that sits up on the hill, so you'll skirt around the needle, around the edge. You will get a lovely view of the horse as you go up the hill, actually, and then you will follow it and bend around and join a 4x4 trail. You often see vehicles on this section. This is a bit of a kind of vehicle 4x4 test area where they drive their 4x4s, so it is common to see vehicles on this section, and even on here, which actually isn't a byway, but they don't always ignore those rules, so you may well see 4x4s on this, even though they're not supposed to drive there. Obviously, just step well away from the trail if you do see any vehicles approaching, and let them pass. Now let me zoom out a little bit, because you're going to follow this trail and then cross the A4 again, and there's a difference here. Hopefully you can see that if I turn off or turn on the 50, turn off all those routes, actually what I'm going to do is turn them on one at a time. So once you cross the A4, you've got to get to Avebury. Now then, the 50-kilometre route takes the shortest route, which is the first right-hand turn right the way along here into Avebury, and the 100-mile route does exactly the same. However, the 50-mile route, in order to make up the correct distance, takes a slightly longer route, so be very careful not to follow the person in front of you if you're on the 50-mile route, because you may end up taking a short route, and we will dock you some time because your GPS tracker won't record virtual checkpoints which are in this area, and you'll get docked a time penalty. So do make sure you go right the way around and make your way into the wonderful tiny little village of Avebury, where you will go past the stone circle. Now, officially you can go straight the way to the end, to the crossroads, turn right and make your way around to the stones. do the social club round that way. Alternatively, you can, if you wish, make your way around some of the stone circle. For those that don't know, Avebury Stone Circle covers this entire area. However, for reasons in some time in the history in the past, they decided to plough roads right through there and right through there. So this is now a tarmac lane in these directions, which is somewhat of a shame because otherwise it would be a lovely unspoiled stone circle. Anyway, that being said, if you want, you can just follow the road. If you wish and you want to take a few pictures of the circle, by all means take a trip right the way around if you wish. It's entirely left with you. We don't mind which way you take. The quickest route is to go straight the way along, turn right, and then come round to the social club, where again we'll usually set up outdoors. At this point in time, the 50-kilometre route leaves the others. So you retrace your steps to the crossroad at this point in here. There's a little pub on the corner, and you turn right and you follow this section. Now I'm going to flip back onto the Ordnance Survey map at this point, just for clarity, just to show you here at Avebury. Here we go. Because you will turn right there and follow the Wessex Ridgeway once again, and you're going pretty much all in the same direction, following that major trail, and up until this point here, where you well, actually no, this is from memory. You cross the main ridgeway on the Hare path, which is the Wessex Ridgeway, and then continue on the main path here. There is a couple of right turns, left forks, all sorts, but you're just following your nose, following the main path on the Wessex Ridgeway or the Hare path up until the point where we were a little earlier on. There was that quick left and right. So at that point in time, the 50k rejoins the outbound route and retrace your steps all the way back into the finish. Okay, for those doing the 50-mile and the 100-mile route, you again retrace your steps out of the village, but take a left at this point in time and head down over a little bit of a trail down past, skirting the edge of Beckhampton. You will join the edge of the road at this point in time very briefly, and then go down this byway track. Halfway down the byway track, you will cut in through a gate and stay along the edge. Now this is a horse training area, so you'll see the white fencing that the horses run between. They will usually have ceased training by the time the event takes place. They're usually there in the mornings on Saturday, so you shouldn't see them, but do ensure you're not running in the horses between the horses white fence there, because you're going to come off second best in an argument with those wonderful horses, race horses they have in this area. Anyway, you'll continue just skirting along the edge of this road. Please don't go onto that road. It is very busy, so do stay alongside the horses area until you do very briefly join the road for a few meters, and then immediately turn right onto this byway. Now, from memory, a couple of years ago, and I'm sure it won't have improved, this section has got some deep ruts from those nasty 4x4 vehicles which have destroyed the land. So they cut deep ruts in the land, so you'll have to run off to one side or the other. It is easily avoidable, but it's just a little bit unfortunate that these byways have caused quite a lot of destruction of some of the trails. I appreciate their shared use, but it's a bit of a shame that some of them are a little bit rutted. So this right the way up here really can be reasonable, quite rutted, but it is completely avoidable. Just run to the grass at the side. You'll crest up onto the top of the hill at this point in time, and then you're going to do a left as you go up over the very top, and then another left again. Hopefully, if I just zoom out a touch, you can see you're effectively doing a bit of a spear shape there as the White Horse. This is all the White Horse Trail, but much of it is shared with byways up until that point. But luckily, when you're back on at this point in time, you get a little bit of respite You cross the main road, the A361 at this point, and then you will run alongside one of the byways. There are usually a couple of parallel paths in a lot of this area, so you do not have to run on the tracks that those vehicles have created. You'll instead be running on some nice, lovely grassy paths instead. And that's going to lead you right the way through to the next horse. There is a split path here, but again, you're following the White Horse Trail, but you're coming to the Pewsey Downs area, and there is a white horse figure on here, really nice one actually. And the great thing about this one is if you don't get a good view as you go past, somewhat rather cruelly, as you might be able to tell from the location of our Alton Barnes checkpoint. So this is the Alton Barnes horse, not the Pewsey horse, which is on the further down on the course. The Alton Barnes checkpoint is in a car park, which is outdoors, and once you have reached that, you'll retrace your step. This is quite a climb. Okay, there are no big hills. You can see there's only 260, 270, 280 meters at the very, very summit. But given that this route is relatively lacks a lot of elevation, this will feel like a big climb, but you do get a wonderful view of the Alton Barnes horse, which is the one that's actually featured on the homepage of our website, of the race website. Now, at this point in time, let me rewind very slightly. Only the 50-mile people rewind and retrace their steps and see the horse. The 100-mile people are actually continuing on. I'm going to deal with the 50-mile return route at this point in time and come back to the 100 miles in a second. So 50 miles, you spin on your heels, go and see a view of the horse again at Alton Barnes. You head up across. This time when you've rejoined the track, you turn right, go right the way across. You'll find a little car park on here. You turn right very briefly, so you cross the road, then turn right, and then you are joining the Tan Hill Way or the Mid Wiltshire Way. You may see both way marks on the in that area. Right, you're going to continue on that trail up until the point where later on the 100-mile route rejoins it and becomes the White Horse Trail. Essentially, this section here, which is 1, 2, 3 and a little bit kilometers, are not White Horse Trail, but it is the Mid Wiltshire Way. Then at this point in time here, where the 100-mile route rejoins, that is just simply the link, which links the 50-mile back to the White Horse Trail, and then you continue on. So I will at this point in time continue with the 100-mile route and pick up there in a few minutes time. So 100 milers, you will visit the checkpoint at Alton Barnes, you run down the road, and then you will join the canal for a very flat section. Now, interestingly, a lot of people find the canal difficult, mentally difficult, because it's flat, featureless, and well, it's not featureless, but it's flat, dull, very little change in elevation. So mentally, they find the canal section very, very difficult. One thing to look out for, if it's still daylight, is you will see the Devizes White Horse, which is a great big huge horse up on the side of the hill, easily visible from the Kennet and Avon Canal here as you go along. Anyway, you're going to make your way right the way through Devizes. I'm going to flip back over to the OpenStreetMap here, just because it's going to make the colour difference a little more stark. So you're on the canal right the way from here, right the way past the horse, which is up on the hill over here, and then you exit the canal at this point in time and strike south for Poolshot. Poolshot, a little village hall here, lovely little village hall actually, just off the trail here that we bring you into. Then you continue on the road right the way through Poolshot. And one thing I want to say at this point in time, let me bring up the course again, the leisure map, is that we have made some changes in this area. This entire section between kind of Poolshot and Bratton, we've made alterations to. If I zoom in, you'll see the changes. So we obviously bring you off the White Horse Trail here to come back in, but we bring you back off it. Now, you can see the White Horse Trail is this diamond shape which goes across here, across here, across here, and across here. Why have we not put you on that and we've instead used the road? The reason being is that it's going to be late at night. It's sometimes a little bit difficult to find your way through that farmland section. Some little bits of it are overgrown as well, and we found when we were wrecking it that it was a lot easier to keep you on the lanes. Appreciate that means a little bit more tarmac, but trust me, you will never know how much thanks you will get for you would give me for making you avoid these sections of farmland which are difficult to nav at night. These roads are very quiet, especially at the times of the morning you're going to be there. I doubt you'll see a car, maybe a couple, but certainly not very much. So follow the GPX file and not the White Horse Trail all the way through to Steeple Ashton. You might be lucky enough to see the churches as you go through, some nice churches in this area. Then you're going to continue on, and finally you will pick up the White Horse Trail again when you get here, and followed it right the way through to rejoin the road, where again we've made a change. You don't go left and then across all the farmland into Bratton. Instead, we've brought you in on the road to Bratton, and you'll see here the White Horse Trail snakes around this way. We don't. We bring you right the way into Bratton, through the way into the Jubilee Hall, which sits here on the corner, and then bring you out a different way. Again, this is all for the purposes of a smooth run for you, to make it a fast course, easier to navigate, as well as facilitating a visit to the Bratton Jubilee Hall. You're then going to make your way up to possibly the most famous of the white horses, which is Westbury, which sits on here. So we bring you around the very, very edge. For those of you who manage to get there very early, you may not see this, but for those who arrive in the early hours of the morning, you may get a view of the spectacular Westbury Horse, which has just been recently repainted, if I remember correctly in the news. So you will make your way around the White Horse Trail, and then at this point in time, you are going to be joining the Military Road, which goes all the way around the edge of Salisbury Plain. Here we go. So you can see Salisbury Plain here, and if I zoom right the way in, a little bit more in, you'll hopefully see the word danger area. So you are following a great big gravel track which goes all the way around this. What you're not doing is straying inside any of this area. You shouldn't accidentally do it, but do be careful. There are roads all the way along where Caterpillar track vehicles, tanks, etc. Come in from various army bases. This is a military firing range for those who are unaware. They will be firing, they can at times be conducting firing exercises on here. So the last place you want to find yourself is wandering around Salisbury Plain during a tank exercise. So you're going to be following this road right the way around the edge for an extremely long time. There are a few little lefts and rights, the odd little gotcha where you may be tempted to go straight on instead of following the main trail. So this is not something you want to do. So to check your watch frequently. Generally speaking, it is easy, but there are the odd place where you might, be half asleep and want to carry straight on. Hopefully your watch will bleep at you. You're going to follow it right the way around. We have one checkpoint here, which we've called the Urchfont checkpoint, even though Urchfont's actually over here, in a car park there. So do give your thanks to our volunteer who will man that checkpoint. Possibly the toughest gig. Can be pretty cold, windy and lonely running that checkpoint out on their own there. So you continue only for about another 5k, if I remember rightly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5k, and then you leave the Imber Range path permanently. You take a left, which takes you right the way across onto farmland at this point in time. So you're back into the farmland area through Charlton St. Peter and onwards right the way through to Pewsey. So you will cross the A345 a couple of times, make your way around. The Pewsey White Horse is here. There might be a little out and back I've done there. We don't really mind if you do that or not, but you will see the Pewsey White Horse there if you want to go and visit it. And then you will make your way into Pewsey and through to our checkpoint at the village hall there again, which is another long opening checkpoint. So do give your thanks to our volunteers who have been up there all night long to look after you. When you leave Pewsey, you will do so initially on the road up into this section where essentially run out of road and onto trail. Again, as you can see from the diamonds, it's all White Horse Trail. And let me zoom out just a touch, just to highlight one area of interest here, which is a little bit of a sting in the tail. As you cross this track here, you can see you go up the Giant's Grave, which is a bit of a short, sharp hill, which leads you around. It's very pretty, actually, this area. Leads you around in a big horseshoe right the way around to the other side. If I remember the history, they believe it's a giant. And when he was buried, he lies in this shape, and that's why it's the Giant's Grave. Apologies to the locals if I didn't quite get that right, but I'm pretty sure that's the legend. And then you continue on. Again, it's all farmland, very easy to follow. This is really nice trail. You're in the final few miles at this point in time, and here we rejoin the 50-mile course, rejoins the route. So you're onto the White Horse Trail, right the way into this Forestry Commission area known as West Woods, and we have at this point in time changed the course back to what it used to be. During COVID, there was a change where the Forestry Commission were not keen on people going into the woods, and we went around a different way. We have, however, reinstated it. We are using the White Horse Trail. You'll go right the way through as normal. You will cross the road at this point in time, head up this hill and turn left. Now, a few years ago, there used to be some badger sets, some holes along this section. I've not been through this in a few years to know if that's still the case, but do watch your footing. So this applies to the 50 milers and 100 milers. As you go along this section, there, just watch your footing for some badger sets, which may of course no longer be there, but if they are, do be careful. And really, at that point in time, you're on the final throws. You're crossing the road very briefly here and following the White Horse Trail right the way through. There is a tiny little white horse just down here, just off the track. If you want to, you can take a little dip off down to see the Marlborough White Horse, which is one of the smaller ones. But if not, stay on the White Horse Trail and basically follow it right the way into the town centre, retracing your steps back to the finish. And that is more or less it, I think. Obviously, if you've got any other questions, ask them on the website, on the Beyond Marathon website, or on the Cabane Events, Facebook page for either of our event companies, Beyond Marathon Community, or the Cabane Events Facebook page as well. And all being well, we will see you bright and early for the race. Thank you very much.